How is it to be Jewish and American these days? I think it was always turbulent, but given the current situation or the escalation in Gaza, how is it for you and for the
Listen,
community?
when I lived in LA, when I began to study and I basically came back to the tradition, it was very welcoming because I lived in a mostly Jewish neighborhood in West Hollywood. I could walk to the synagogue. Let me give you an example. On Yom Kippur, I'm about to leave to the synagogue, and in Yom Kippur, you're not supposed to work. You're not supposed to drive a car. You're not supposed to, do any of that. And I realized that my car was parked on the wrong side of the street. There was going to be street cleaning that day. And the cop was like ticketing everybody on the other side of the street. And I went to him and told him, listen, it's Yom Kippur. I cannot drive. I cannot move my car. He looks at me, takes an empty envelope, puts it on my windshield, and says, you're okay, don't worry.
Good man.
And that made me feel really good. I felt, man, this is a good place to live. This is a good place to be a Jew.
Can you imagine that happening these days?
No, I could not. As a counterpoint for this, I live in West Orange, which is a very, middle-class suburb from New York. In New Jersey, so it's a very left-leaning state. Local government is dominated by the Democratic Party. We had a town meeting a few weeks ago to discuss a motion that had been brought up to City Council to adopt the definition of anti-Semitism, a definition that it's been adopted universally by governments, and it's because we have a big Jewish community. The Jewish community is about 20% of the town, so it's a sizable community.
Yeah.
And there is an open public comment period before the vote. And I was watching it on Zoom and I had to turn it off because it was so...
Was that bad?
Yes. It was really violent, really disturbing.
Really? So people were putting their faces in front of their anti-Semitic comments, because I'm used to that, in the likes of Twitter, social media in general, which these freaking bots just talking. Let's call things by words, talking shit on Jews, but it's mostly hiding behind bots. So people were putting their names and faces behind that comments, and they didn't care. For me, that tells a lot that they are not really facing any consequences.
Absolutely. It became acceptable. Anti-Semitism is the less acceptable form of discrimination in the Western world right now, and specifically in the United States. And this has a genesis that goes way before whatever is happening in Gaza. It started with Trump. It started with Trump empowering the right-wing nut jobs, the neo-Nazis, the there's good people on both sides discourse he had about people who were actually marching with Nazi flags in Charlottesville. He said there's good people on both sides. There was a demonstration that wanted to tear down a statue of General Lee, and there were actual Nazis demonstrating with Nazi flags, and he has this comment. There's good people on both sides.
Well,
David Duke endorsed Donald Trump. You read the KKK newspapers; they praise him. So he kind of created this climate where it's absolutely acceptable to be anti-Semitic openly. You can say everything you want about the Jews. That's it. It's accepted.
But how did that go from the right to the far left? That's what I'm very curious to know.
Absolutely.
Because you would think that the far left will say everything that Trump is against. They'll be on the other side. So,
no. And it's very telling that right now, the Democratic Socialists of America and the David Duke website, you can just change the headline, and you can change the header of the site, and you look below, and you can't distinguish one from the other. You cannot tell them apart.
It's insane. Yeah. It's absolutely insane. Yeah.
Yeah, and in my case, it's even more hurtful and more disturbing because that's where I come from politically. I'm a Trotskyist. I'm I'm a lefty. All my life, my grandfather was a communist. That's how I was raised. I was raised singing the International, and before before April, before the revolution.
Yes.
I would sing the International on the bus, and my mom would be so upset that my grandfather taught me that because we lived in a dictatorship. Okay, so all this to tell you that coming from that part, I feel completely betrayed, absolutely betrayed, because the people I considered my equals in terms of struggle, people who shared my ideals, are now the people stabbing me in the back.
It's absolutely crazy. I was thinking to go to the States this year, but now I'm hesitating. I don't know where is my crowd anymore. It's good that I didn't book the ticket.
It's really scary, and I have a kid. I have a little kid. I have a 6-year-old girl, and my wife and I we are really worried about the future for her. Luckily, we're lucky enough to have enough money to have her in a private school. She goes to a Jewish private school. So she's shielded from all of this, because even we bought the house where we bought it because the public schools were so good. That was the main decision. We're going to buy this house because the public schools are great. Our kid is going to have a tremendous future. And the public schools are thriving with anti-Semitism. There's pamphlets, anti-Semitic pamphlets being distributed outside the high school here in town, in a left-wing town in New Jersey, 20 minutes from New York.